I heard and I listened to and I respect Senator Harris. But we all know that 30 seconds to 60 seconds on a campaign debate exchange can't do justice to a lifetime committed to civil rights. I want to be absolutely clear about my record and position on racial justice, including busing. I never, ever opposed voluntary busing. And as a program that Senator Harris participated in, and it made a difference in her life. I did support federal action to address root causes of segregation in our schools and our communities, including taking on the banks and redlining and trying to change the way in which neighborhoods were segregated. I've always been in favor of using federal authority to overcome state-initiated segregation. In fact, I cast a deciding vote in 1974 against an amendment called the Gurney Amendment, which would have banned the right of the federal courts to be able to use busing as a remedy. And you might guess, in the middle of the most extensive busing order in American history in my city, in my state, it wasn't what you call the most popular vote in the country at the time. So Reverend Jackson, we spent a lot of time working together over the years on a lot of issues that matter. And I know, and you know, I fought my heart out to ensure that civil rights and voting rights, equal rights are enforced everywhere. These rights are not up to the states to decide. They are federal government's duty to decide. It's a constitutional question to protect the civil rights of every single American. And that's always been my position. And so that's why I ran for federal office in the first place. As Reverend Jackson may be one of the few people that knows, my city was the only city after Dr. King was assassinated that was almost burned to the ground. 20% of it. The only city in the United States of America since Reconstruction that was occupied by the National Guard with drawn bayonets on almost every corner for 10 months. I came home from law school that year, and I only had two political heroes, Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, and they were both assassinated the year I graduated. And I came home and I had a job with one of the oldest law firms in the state, a prestigious firm. And after 5 months, I decided I couldn't do it. And I ended up leaving and becoming a public defender. When I was elected, one of the first things I did is to go on a committee to try to strengthen the Voting Rights Act. I co-sponsored the Equal Rights Amendment. I supported making the Equity Act in law and make the law of the land today. I voted for the Civil Rights Act of 1990 to ban employment discrimination. I wrote the law, the provision of the law that allows the Attorney General to pursue cases involving, quote, a pattern or practice of conduct by law enforcement officers in violation of constitutional or federal rights. I wrote that law. And I used that power during the Obama-Biden administration. Our Department of Justice investigated police discrimination and abuse, including Ferguson. By the way, we worked like the devil to make sure that you should not allow police departments to buy excess military vehicles like up-armored Humvees and armored personnel carrier. You don't go into a neighborhood and police going in an up-armored Humvee or a personnel carrier. Our criminal justice reforms as president and vice president reduced the federal population by 38,000 people. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Obama-Biden administration, we commuted more sentences than the president did than the 13 previous presidents combined. We passed the support. By the way, with all due respect, I say to Chicagoans and everyone, my president gets much too little credit for all that he did. He was one of the great presidents of the United States of America. And I'm tired of hearing about what he didn't do. This man had a backbone like a ramrod. He had a backbone like a ramrod. You want to know what a man and woman's made of? Watch them under incredible pressure. He got elected as we were about to fall off a cliff. We went out and we had to pass an act that was Recovery Act. $800 billion. And guess what? Remember, he stood up on the, he loved it. He loved in the State of the Union and turned and surprised me. He didn't tell me. He said, and Sheriff Joe's going to enforce the act. Thanks a lot, Mr. President. $800 billion. But we did it without less than 2% of waste, fraud, or abuse in that act. But here's what he did. Everything that landed on his desk, I watched him. I watched him. I sat with him every single morning, and I watched him. for hundreds of hours in the so-called, the situation was not where Wolf Blitzer lives, the real situation. I watched it. And I want to tell you, Chicago, you had a great, great man out here, and he's still a great man, and he still has a lot to offer. Here in office, we passed a supportive discipline initiative to start to break the school-to-prison pipeline. Folks, the discussion in this race today shouldn't be about the past. We should be talking about how we can do better, how we can move forward, how we can give every child in America the opportunity for success stories. These aren't somebody else's children. They're our children. They're all our children. Not a joke. They're all our children. And they're the kite strings that lift our national ambitions aloft. We have to make people realize what you all are doing. What you're doing is every single child in America has enormous potential. Every single child has enormous potential. But it means you have to have good schools in every neighborhood. No child's future should be determined by their zip code. That's why I propose tripling funding for Title I schools to eliminate disparities between rich and poor school districts. We're going to increase teachers' pay. We're going to make pre-K absolutely a requirement across the board. Make sure that we're moving closer to the idea of America's founding. You know, we all learn in school. We hold these truths self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. Are we the people? We've never lived up to that. We've never lived up to that. And this is the 400th anniversary of the first African American being brought to the shores of the United States enslaved. That's the original sin of this nation. But we've never walked away from it either. We've never walked away from the expectation. All of you in this room have never walked away from it. And look, there's only one president I know that's actually deliberately walked away from it. And that is Donald Trump. Not a joke. Think about this. I don't know about you, Jess, but I never thought that after all the progress had been made, I'd see people marching out of fields, carrying torches, contorted faces, anger and hate, accompanied by white supremacists and the Ku Klux Klan, met by decent, honorable people who said, we don't hate here. And what happened? A clash ensued, a young woman died. And what did he say? When asked about it, he said, quote, "No president's ever said this. There are very fine people in both groups." He has yet to apologize or criticize the Ku Klux Klan and the white supremacists. Look, we have a president who promotes hate and division, has encouraged the poison of white supremacy. Our children are watching. Barack was the president our kids not only could, but did look up to. Look, what presidents say matters. It matters. And by the way, when we stay silent, our silence is complicity. That's what I learned from my dad. Your silence is complicity. You know, I promise you, if I get elected president, I will be a president who stands against racism, the forces of inclusion and intolerance everywhere in our society, in our institutions, in our voting booths, and in our hearts. It matters what we say.